Okay, what this video is. So I switched from Vim to Emacs about 5 years ago and wanted to make a follow-up video to my last one. But in writing the script, it just kind of turned into awesome things that are awesome about Emacs. So whatever, this is fun too. We're going to start simple and then get more advanced, so try to keep up. Warning, this video contains no flashing lights, camera movements, After Effects, or zooms. Has YouTube fried your dopamine receptors so much that you can't keep focus on a topic of interest for more than a few seconds? You clicked on a text editor video. A text editor video. You knew what this was, so buckle up. Also, if you need to split screen me with Subway Surfers or Ultimate Satisfying Videos Compilation 87, emotional, then at least do me the respect of keeping it to yourself, and I better not catch you scrolling the comments. So, without further ado, Funciones favoritas de Emacs. Multiple operating systems. I like working on many systems: towers, laptops, SBCs, Windows, Android, Macs. Just kidding. I don't use Macs. But Emacs works on all of them. You may not have known that you can run Emacs on a Windows platform, but it is possible. You just have to confirm your decision a few times, read a short blurb about the dangers of proprietary software, and navigate past a picture of Richard Stallman with a single tear rolling down his filthy, disgusting cheek. I'm not actually trying to be rude. Stallman is canonically disgusting. Do yourself a favor and do not look it up. Suffice to say, I have a unified experience across all platforms because I just started Emacs. You might not have expected this one, but you know what happens when you browse the web with a text editor? Actually, it's more like what doesn't happen, because Google isn't yanking your focus constantly. It works great for blogs, quick web searches, Stack Exchange, no JavaScript tracking, but also, no CAPTCHAs. So it doesn't always work, but you're using Emacs, the operating system, which lacks only a good text editor. Plus, if you get stuck, you can always do one of these, and it'll pop open that same page in an external browser. So bypass the distractions, jump straight to exactly what you want, because Emacs is not a text editor. It's a lightweight web browser. Hey, you down in the comments section. My eyes are up here. Come back up. We're going to show you some shiny pictures. One of the great reasons to avoid browsers is because they're just distraction machines. There's constantly stuff going on, and there's always greener pastures to be accessed almost immediately. So if you like distractions, well, guess what? Emacs has distractions too. We got all kinds of distractions in here. All right. So we've got the Nyan This is highly important. You need this. This is a screensaver, kind of, actually. And we've got, there we go. We've got a Tmux, a clock preview. That is in military time, of course, because this is a normal hour to be awake. We've got digital clocks. We've got analog clocks. We've got 2048 because obviously you want you gotta be playing 2048 because all the cool hackers do that stuff. And then of course you need to be able to play Tetris. This is we're playing Tetris in Emacs. Are you prepared for this? False. No one's prepared for this. And then this is actually a thing. I can generate a Mandelbrot set, and I'm doing it live here because we've got the busy. See, look at this. This is a clever bit of code, but this is not a text editor here. That is what I'm talking about. Emacs is not a text editor. It is an entertainment system. All right, so watch this. Lunar phases. That is the phases of the moon. Because Emacs. So while researching this video, I found that there are a few features that made me say, are you serious? Like, is this actually a joke? And I had to type them into my current Emacs session and find that they were already there for like 30 years before I discovered it. Discovery is a constant feature of Emacs and really drives excitement with the software. You want to check something out, so you invoke the help. Then while reading, you find some other feature, and you open that one up real quick, and before you know it, you've wiki-wandered into Emacs as an RPN calculator and a therapist. That's not a joke. It actually does both of those things. One of them really well and the other kind of poorly. So Git is kind of annoying to work with. I know I'm definitely the only person who thinks that. So everyone just ignore what I say next. This is just for me. Magit integrates visual feedback into Git and lets you track commits, do individual line-level staging, and preview your commits for those incredibly rare instances where Git does something you didn't intend. Along with this, you get a non-GUI level integration of passwords and credentials, so you don't have to worry about typing passwords into a terminal or a clipboard history. It's just a better way to manage all of it. When everything is in Emacs, you get full control over how that information is displayed. You get text size, colors, font, layout, and images. You can even make your document progress bar a nyan cat. So there's that. You want to read something in a dyslexic-friendly font? No problem. You want dark mode? Dark mode is literally just colors on your screen. Quick rant here. Companies and websites are like, we added a dark mode, like they have deigned to allow us to bend their carefully focus grouped design philosophy. No, it's my computer. If I want to read your website in neon green wingdings with a puce background with every sentence ending in my pants, then I will. Anyway, there is a speed reading method called rapid serial visual presentation where your eyes don't move and the word just changes in the same spot. This reduces muscle movement and makes it easier to read quickly. Does this remind you of anything? You may have seen things like this packaged as browser applets, software, or smartphone apps. This is an excellent example of a technique that is easy to reproduce if and only if you have full access to the internals of the software you're using. Emacs lets you use it on any buffer at any time, even buffers you really shouldn't run it in. Yeah, the training wheels are off, and you might fall, but in exchange you get some serious power. Imagine being visually impaired and being able to read anything you want once it's inside Emacs. Because Emacs is not a text editor, it's accessibility software. Org mode, you knew this was coming. I can't even begin to describe how useful org mode is. It alone is worth the price of admission. Org mode was a reason to learn Emacs, not only before I knew anything about Emacs, but also after I knew how weird and difficult it was. You can use shortcuts like Spacemax to try out org mode without learning hardly any Emacs. I kind of recommend it, if only to get the experience of org mode, because it will take over your life in a good way. And it's all plain text, which means it's completely platform agnostic, and no one will be able to improve your user experience with subscriptions or clouds or UI changes. I've gone through a lot of personal management software, and they always end like this. Well, not anymore, because Emacs is not a text editor, it is your personal organizer. X11 forwarding. For those of you fortunate enough not to know, X11 forwarding allows you to forward entire application windows through SSH tunnels. The reason your display manager was programmed as if the screen was somewhere else is historically interesting and pretty impressive, but the reason it still does this is, well, not that impressive. But who cares? We can send entire application windows through encrypted tunnels anywhere on the internet. Which means not only do I get Emacs wherever I want, I get my Emacs running on my home server with all my open buffers and weird code I'm testing out, and I get it in GUI mode, so it's fully featured. X11 forwarding is native and fast on Linux, and surprisingly fast on Windows with Ming64. I like using MOBA Xterm for this, and even passing through 2 SSH tunnels, it works fantastic. Alright, so you knew this was coming. In the 50s, John McCarty made a Lisp processor, a homoiconic programming language without any preconceptions about what a computer or a language should be. It is a human operating language where tasks are abstracted by other abstractions very easily. Frankly, it was more of a theoretical mathematics-based system, which didn't squeeze into the limited resources available in the 60s. Sadly, ahead of its time, not performant on the hardware available, and instead we went bottom up. We micromanaged memory ourselves and act surprised when our programs don't scale. It is very difficult to describe what learning a Lisp is like, but I can tell you that every programmer should do it, because once the light bulb goes off, it will improve your programming in all languages. You don't have to quit programming in Blub. You can just visit and steal some cool ideas. So Lisp is a very big deal. Well, Emacs is basically written in it and extended by a Lisp dialect, because Emacs is not a text editor. It is a virtual Lisp machine. And I'm not just reusing the phrase here to be cute. Emacs is a virtual Lisp machine which happens to edit text. Because it is a VM, it and the code that expands it is completely transportable. Use it on whatever bootloader OS you happen to be at. Since it's a VM, you can change it live, without the danger of changing things on a true Lisp machine where the entire system crashes because you typoed. Let the OS handle all the housekeeping. Emacs is your meta operating system. Because it's basically a VM, you get to build up weird states, recover, spin up multiple copies, compare states, whatever. Paint yourself into a corner, say whoops, kill that instance, and try again. I have a custom keyboard layout, and I've toyed with swapping the keyboard input to match the layout such that every button press changes to another button to match my keyboard layout in every part of Emacs. I could try out different methods of doing this in a live environment, and if I lock myself out or remap enter to like 3 or something, I can just reset and keep at it until I find something that works, and then apply it and save my changes. Just the fact that this is even a possibility without recompiling is bonkers, and I hope this gives you some insight into how crazy Emacs will let you get. The point of Emacs is that you can. Emacs will not stop you. It is an extremely well-documented open system that invites you to mess around with it. It might throw a warning at you, but it will let you proceed. Emacs wants you to extend it, not just like, oh, here's a scripting console, there's some plugins available. It's like, reach into the guts and start swapping out organs just to see what happens. Not only is there no comparison to the customizability of other text editors, there's almost no comparison to any other software, period. TLDR, Lisp is life-changing and you should understand it. And after you do, Emacs, your new favorite meta operating system, lets you use Lisp to customize it to perfectly suit how you interact with the tiny little people who live inside your computer. I just wanted to throw this in for fun. This is one of the greatest things about Lisp is the limited syntax. You now know Lisp. There's nothing you can do. Speaking of extending Emacs, how about an example? People say Lisps aren't great at... People say. Gerald Sussman, he's not people, okay? Gerald Sussman says Lisps aren't great at any one task. But that's not true, because they are the best at writing new languages that are purpose-built for exactly your use case. Which is, okay, so it's good at replacing itself. It doesn't matter, it's still useful, okay? So when I got sick of doing the syntax shuffle with OpenSCAD, I used Emacs Lisp to write a shorthand language for quick and easy development that takes my shorthand and embiggens it to this syntactically, correctactically, OpenSCAD-actically text. So I don't miss a brace here or a semicolon there and spend an hour trying to figure out why my keyboard case looks like a 3D stained glass window. Syntax does serve a purpose. It needs to be exactly accurate. It has rigid rules. It eliminates ambiguity. But you know what's also really great at being super pedantic? Computers. I am a people, not a computers. And while I understand the CAD math is complex, I don't want to feel like I'm processing the linear algebra in assembly on my PDP-11 ruler. If you can possibly make an aspect of the coding more anthropocentric, please do. But for everyone else, Emacs is here to stand in the gap. Why Emacs and not just any Lisp or translator in some other language? Because Lisp is natively good at it, and you're already editing text inside Emacs that is ready to translate your buffer and write it to an output file. It's just sitting there like, put me in, coach, but you don't know how to use it to its full potential yet. Really, the only way this could be more convenient is if it could read your brainwaves. And while we're not there yet, Google Alphabet and the Alphabet agencies are trying their best. DIRED, or DIRED, I don't know, is Emacs's integrated file management system and allows you to perform standard file management tasks, including moving files around. Since it uses a robust system of URIs, you can use it to transfer files to and from wherever Emacs can connect. Because Emacs is not a text editor, it is a file management system. bookmarks. See, this is the same kind of thing with the URI. It's super easy to jump around between files on systems, however the connection takes place. So you see we've got fully qualified domain name via SSH, plink if you're on a Windows box, connecting through a tunnel through localhost with port specified. Very useful stuff, and it allows you to jump just straight directly to the file. It makes it seamless. You got to understand that this is a complete URI. If you want to access one file via SSH and another via FTP, you just type it in or bake it into those bookmarks. You don't have to think, okay, I got to open the file X through method Y to reach system Z. I just select it from my recent files list and Emacs handles the rest. In this example, I'm calling Emacs's native MySQL connector, and I'm telling it to connect to a local database. Except here, I tell it that the default directory is actually a URI to another server. And you know what Emacs does when I tell it to connect to a local SQL server, except to pretend that it's actually somewhere else? It does exactly what I asked it to do. Because Emacs is not a text editor. It is a seamless translator between your request and whatever technical means are required to accomplish it. I'm going to try leaning on this side now. This runs on a Windows system, so it specifies the PuTTY SSH forwarding method plink to reach for a file on the Raspberry Pi for editing. When I save it, it saves the file there, and when I want to compile it, I start a terminal command to build the code and load it onto the Pico development system. But Troy, I hear your brain braining. Didn't you just say you're on a Windows system? Didn't you just tell Emacs to run a Linux command on a Windows system? Yes, I did. But Emacs knows from the default directory that you're connected somewhere, somehow, and it executes the command on that system with whatever means is appropriate. Because Emacs is not a text editor. It's an extensible layer of human abstraction. So you can think your thoughts as close to normally as possible and let Emacs handle all the details. So if you think this sounds like a kitchen sink software philosophy, yes, exactly, you are correct. Because the more things I run through Emacs, the more control I have over them. Here's an even better example. I am going through a common Lisp book, which is different enough from Emacs Lisp that it needs its own compiler. So since it's a Lisp though, it lets me pass commands to it, query it, and control it externally through something like Emacs. So I've got my connector REPL right here. It's kind of like a JavaScript console or a Python interactive interpreter. Then I've got my code here as text that I will use Emacs to edit. Emacs can technically edit text. More about that later. And here I've got the EPUB of the book that I'm reading, all in Emacs. And I know by this point you're thinking I can copy or type code into here and then run it through here and paste it in that. And I could do that, but why would I? Because everything I've got is already inside Emacs. The example code is already inside Emacs. So I can evaluate this expression directly from the book inside Emacs. There we see, we've got our output already evaluated right down here. I can evaluate the expression straight from the book. Emacs searches backward for any expression and then passes it to the external interpreter here and returns any feedback. And you know what? I have begun to spray it. What's that? You want another example? Well, I couldn't possibly. Oh, look, area codes. I am an early riser, so when I'm returning voicemails, I want to know what time zone I'm calling. So why not make a shortcut to Emacs to tell me what the time zone is of the phone area code under my cursor. So here I've got the website with the data that we want. I will just browse to it within Emacs. It will autocomplete the URL that's under that name. I will grab the data here. Here. And I've got the data here. I'll just enclose in parentheses here. Word count 376. Look at that Nyan cat on his way down there. There we go. Now I'll just call this a complete list. And now it is data. And now We will test. That works. And now we will check area code for code. I think that's it. Check area code 859. There it is. 4. There it is. So now Emacs can check area codes. I had done this previously where it was more full featured. Added some new features to it where it would spit out the actual time. But again, you just get the code in there first, and now you've got something in there, you have something to work with to improve. But the code goes quick, very quick. It's true. Emacs has the ability to edit text, but you should only use that feature in an emergency. The ergonomic dangers of Emacs are myriad. The physical deformity called Emacs Pinky, of which I do not have, is legendary. Richard Stallman's RSI is a very real, very sad thing. So if you want to use Emacs to edit text and also want functional hands in 10 years, you can switch interfaces and or get a keyboard that makes excessive mod usage comfortable, like mine. And I'm not just talking about caps lock to control. You need to be 3 to 5 layers of irony above that for extended use. The best solution for most is to extend Emacs with an alternative interface, of which there are many, because it is a real problem. You don't get to ignore this. Ergonomic issues will sneak up on you and pounce and unexpectedly change the rest of your life. Stop it before it is a problem. My recommendations first: Ja Lee's ERGO Emacs, which abolishes chording. Second, Spacemacs or Doom Emacs, which almost rewrites Emacs's interface completely. It is a little bit overkill in my professional opinion, but it's a good place to visit temporarily just to see if you like it here. And last, my favorite, Evil Mode, which integrates into Emacs without really obliterating it. Adding Vim's keys and modal editing to Emacs. Modal editing, of course, is objectively better in every way. I will die on this hill, except I won't die because I'm right. So whatever you do, don't use vanilla Emacs to edit text, because Emacs is not a text editor. It's a really bad text editor into which you can install a working text editor called Vim. This isn't a Vim versus Emacs turf war, because they don't even share the same turf. To find out why, check out my Emacs versus Vim, why can't we all just get along video right here. Are you kidding? I'm not editing that in. You think I'm going to make it easier for you to open yet another YouTube tab? I told you this video wasn't for the dopamine disabled, so if you're interested, find it yourself. Emacs has a GUI mode that includes text resizing, displaying graphics, but the real hacker person can run it in the terminal, which means you can connect your Emacs session from wherever you have a computer that can download PuTTY or run a Linux terminal. That includes things like this Pocket chip. I was not at home and had key access to a customer on this system, and then I ran the Emacs server on it, connected to it with a different system, and did my work straight through it. Awesome. High access, low requirements. Emacs is everywhere you need it to be. Usually Emacs runs as a single instance GUI application, but you can run it as a server, so if your display manager crashes, Emacs doesn't crash, because displays and GUIs are for noobs. My text editor runs as a service. Just for convenience sake, I run it with the foreground server mode in Tmux so that I can read any complaints that it has, and it will survive complete GUI crashes. Also, it is possible to fat finger on accident and close out your entire Emacs instance if you run a single GUI session, which you cannot do in server mode. Well, why does it matter if your text editor closes? I close Nano and Notepad all the time. You're still not getting it. Emacs is not a text editor. It is an operating system. Turning it off on accident is like hitting the reset button on your computer. All that state lost, like con cells in my brain. Speaking of state, you can interact with a running instance of the Lisp machine that is Emacs via command line directly. So while you can ask the OS to start other applications with Emacs, the other applications and the OS can talk back to Emacs in its own language. You know what else opens a REPL to external interfaces for the purposes of scripting and OS integration? Yep, that's right, because Emacs is not a text editor, it's a programming language. This is the final and favorite one. KiCad is a FOSS PCB software that has a Python scripting console you can use to place footprints and traces programmatically, which is super useful if you're designing custom keyboards. I've got a GitHub repo sharing the keyboard building functions that I use, and I wanted to pull info out of the KiCad PCB file in order to generate an STL of the circuit board, and I discovered that KiCad stores its PCB files in Lisp format, which means with one word and two parentheses, I read the entire PCB into Emacs memory, just like I did with the area code website. And then I can do whatever I want with it. So a few functions later, I'm generating Emacs OpenSCAD code to make a PCB based on whatever criteria I choose. Months later, I'm using my Python functions to place a few traces on a dozen or so footprints at the same time. It's a good video. I actually will link that in the description. While I was doing that, I noticed that I was making typos while I was writing out the function parameters. So whatever, I'm just like, get good, casual. But then months later, I'm getting ready to do the same thing again, but with way more traces. So I says to myself, you're going to make typos. Why not make the computer type for you? So I combine the two. I make the traces for one key. I let Emacs read the PCB, map out the traces around that one key, and then it writes out the Python code that I need to apply all those traces it read to all the keys that I want, and just paste that code into the console. I'm using Emacs to write code to enter into other systems. It's a Metacode. But why not just write it in Python? 3 reasons. First, I hate Python. The syntax and typing are super annoying, and if I can avoid writing in Python, I will. I've already had to refactor the Python code after a KiCad update broke it. Python code should be as short and sweet as possible so that I can build logic and complexity into my Lisp code where it's easy to debug. Because if I must have complexity, I always want the simplest complexity possible. Second, I understand the scripting console is already in Python, but this isn't a square peg being hammered into a round hole. This is the roundest peg fitting into the roundest hole recursively, all the way down to the turtles. Emacs Lisp is perfect for this task. Python is Ouroboros. Emacs is Conway's Game of Life, written in Conway's Game of Life. The file is literally already in Lisp syntax. I'm already in a text editor that runs Lisp. I've already got CAD support functions written in Lisp. I don't care if the scripting console wants blub syntax. Lisp logic can cleanly write blub without syntax errors. And third, because you still don't get it. Because Emacs is not a text editor. It's a way of life. Only slightly hyperbolic. I had more, but it's like 3:15 in the morning. I'm done. Here's a nickel, kid. Go buy yourself a real text editor.